Before we begin the breakdown, we had to interrupt. We have a very exclusive interview with one of the competitors for this main event. The heavyweight champion himself, Francis Ngannou, has taken time out of his busy schedule, taken time out of his training camp to talk to us here today. And I'm very proud for him to be the very first guest on Tiger Bomb MMA. Francis Ngannou, thank you for being with us today.
This might be the opportunity that I've been looking for.
Those are very kind words, Francis. We really appreciate it. But let's get down to the nitty gritty. We don't want to keep you too long. My first question for you, sir. When it comes to the negotiations between yourself and the UFC, Dana White in particular, I know your current contract has you getting about 500,000 to win, 500,000 to show, and you are opting to potentially get options for boxing. Would you think that winning this fight in devastating fashion would guarantee you getting what you want with that new contract? What are your thoughts, sir?
I knock him out in the second round. Then I get my UFC contract right after that.
I like the bold prediction, sir. Thank you. Jose, any questions?
Francis, hello. My name is Jose, and my question is, what is your favorite Pokemon?
War title?
I think he said War Turtle.
Oh, that's an interesting choice, Francis. That's not the a usual answer, but still, that's pretty OG, I would say. As a follow-up question, this has been recently a hot topic, at least with myself and a few others. But what do you think of the female orgasm?
As far as I'm concerned, that doesn't exist.
Ah, I knew it. Okay, thanks for confirming, Francis.
Second question for me, Francis. I know you are quite the humanitarian yourself. You have displayed a love and kindness to children. When dealing with children asking you for your autograph, how do you take that? Being that you are, of course, larger than life in their eyes, when some random child comes up to you, how do you approach them? How do you deal with that?
They don't deserve shit. They are just a kids.
Well, sir, you are entitled to your time and they shouldn't be bothering you. My final question, when it comes to the UFC and you hear a lot about CT and trauma, you haven't really had much of any resistance in the cage other than the Stipe fight, the first one. Do you seem to suffer from any long-lasting effects from that particular fight? If so, please tell us.
Sometimes I sleep at night and then wake up and my mind is just thinking. Then I'm like, I'm a champion, right? Are you? Wasn't even sure. And then I'll come check the belt. And I'm like, yeah, I am the champion.
Well, that is concerning, Francis. I hope you can get that figured out. But we don't want to keep you any longer. Thank you very much for your time. Once again, guys, Francis Ngannou, thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
Dude, that was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, he was a bit more talkative than usual.
This is Johnny and Jose with Tiger Bomb MMA. And tonight we'll be going over UFC 270, Ngannou versus Gane, going over the entire fight card, giving you our thoughts, predictions. But let's start these predictions for UFC 270. Starting off with a welterweight bout, very short notice between Jack Della Maddalena and Pete Rodriguez. I did a ton of research on both of these guys, more so on Jack Della Maddalena. And at the end of the day, once I started watching Pete Rodriguez, I kind of realized that I wasted my night doing all that research. Jack Della Maddalena is going to whip Pete Rodriguez's ass. And I say that because he is just the better fighter, the better record, fought the better competition. And it shows in the odds, minus 300 for Jack Della Maddalena. Come back on Pete Rodriguez is plus 240. They are nearly identical in the sense of height and reach. 5'11 for Jack Della Maddalena, 5'9 for Pete Rodriguez, 73-inch reach for each man, 25 years old each man. Interesting little bout. Good for Pete Rodriguez to get into the UFC, but the dude is primarily just just a boxer and not a very good one at that. He is 4-0, been fighting a lot of regional bums in the Mexican scene. Jack Della Maddalena, I can attest to his overall record. He fought in the Contender Series. He looked fantastic. Great hands, great defense, great get up game, great submission defense. I can go on and on. All I know is that Jack Della Maddalena is going to knock out Pete Rodriguez in the first round, possibly the second, depending on if he wants to be cautious with the power of Pete Rodriguez. But yeah, I do not see this going the distance at all. So if you're planning on prop betting, I would go with Jack Della Maddalena by first round knockout or just inside the distance. This is a give me fight for him. So I've got, once again, Jack Della Maddalena first round knockout.
This is going to be experience. Experience is going to triumph here. Even though they're both the same age, he has roughly 3 times the experience, essentially. That is Jack over Pete. Dead game. That's interesting. Very interesting nickname. Not sure where that's coming from. But yeah, I think the Aussie's going to take it here. Don't really have much more to add other than I'll say he'll knock him out in round 2.
Our next bout at strawweight, Vanessa Demopolous, not Demopolous, like I said last time, versus Silvana Gomez Suarez. I won't spend too much time talking about this one. It's essentially, once again, striker versus grappler. A striker that's 37 years old versus a grappler that's 33. Currently, the odds have it in favor of Demopolous minus 140. Comeback on Suarez is plus 120. I see Demopolous getting a takedown and either controlling the round or getting a submission. And that's essentially it. If she cannot get the takedown, I think she's in for a world of hurt. But realistically, she's going to get a takedown. Her last fight against J.J. Aldrich, she fought a much taller woman, a much bigger woman at a much heavier weight class. So I think her dropping back down to her natural weight class is going to do her well. I predict her to win by second round submission, at the very, very least by decision. If she's getting her ass beat by honestly, the better striker fighting out of Entrim Gym, where the current flyweight champ fights out of, I see her just getting at least one takedown or some control time against the cage and just edging out the rounds. So I'll go with second round submission. Not very confident, not touching this one at all.
Yeah, this fight's. I think it's lose-lose. I mean, even if you win, you lose, just because you should not be betting on women's MMA. I'll go with I'll jump on the Demopolous train here. Yeah, 33, 37. Yeah, they're both kind of over the hill. Even for this weight class. Yeah, don't really have much more to add than that.
Our next bout at bantamweight, Raoni Barcelos versus Victor Henry. Another one of these fights that got postponed, and now it's on the pay-per-view. So very excited to see the debut of Victor Henry. The dude really deserves to be in the UFC after the grinding that he's done outside of the UFC. Currently, the odds are in a huge favor of Raoni Barcelos minus 420. Come back on Victor Henry plus 320. Those odds are tempting for Victor Henry because he's a very well-rounded guy, a protege of Josh, the babyface assassin Barnett. He's very well-rounded, good striking, good kicks, good wrestling, 21-5 overall record. They're both 34 years old, both the same height of 5'7". I don't have Victor Henry's reach, but I would assume to be about the same for each man. Raoni Barcelos, he has the UFC experience. His last fight was a loss against lucky Timur Valiev. I still say that he won that fight in the second round by TKO, but it is what it is. Give props to Valiev for coming back and edging out that decision. But in this fight, although I am rooting for Victor Henry, and it sucks to say because I like Raoni Barcelos, I like both of these guys, mainly hoping that Victor wins because of the path that he had to take. He had to grind to get into the UFC, and just on short notice, he ends up getting his contract. So props to him. But I think Barcelos is just too good. He has the more experience, and that's more so UFC experience. And I know it might not mean much because I think they're both equally experienced overall, more so Henry. In reality, it's just that the level of competition that Barcelos has fought in the UFC is just a smidge better. So I'll go with Barcelos to win this one by a decision. Frankly, though, I see a way that Victor Henry could edge out a decision here, or possibly even a finish if he goes balls to the wall. So I might even put a little bit of money on that plus 320. That rhymed. But my official pick has to be Barcelos, but I might not even add him on any parlays. He's priced out for me.
Yeah, I think you should come away with the decision, not overly handily. It shouldn't be Giga Cater situation where you're expecting him to dominate like I did, and then guess what? He ran out of gas, midway through the second round after grappling a little bit in the first round. Anyway, not to shit on Giga, but yeah, he's got to kick up his grappling, if he wants to make it, to a title shot. Yeah, so I'll hop on the Hione train. I think you should get it done. This will be, I think, probably a split decision.
Next bout, Jasudavicius versus Kay Hansen. Currently, the odds have it in favor of Kay Hansen minus 255. Come back on Jasudavicius plus 205. And this one's interesting because I think Kay Hansen should win this one because she is the better fighter. The tape that I watched on Jasudavicius, it was not impressive. She was getting outstruck by a very short girl in her Contender Series fight. What was it? Julia Pilastri. She had the reach advantage, which she will have in this fight. She's 5'7". Currently against Kay Hansen, 5-inch height advantage, 5-inch reach advantage, and I don't think she knows how to use it very well. She has gotten girls out of there with strikes in the past. Her ground and pound is pretty damn vicious. And yeah, frankly, Kay Hansen, although she's a 10th planet jiu-jitsu specialist, there's a way that Jasudavicius can maybe control on top. But in reality, Kay Hansen has improved. She's getting better. Her striking looked good. The loss against Corey McKenna was a bit funky. I don't want to get into that particular fight because of the scorecards and people thinking that Kay Hansen won, which I at the moment thought she did. But looking back, I have no quarrel with her losing that fight. But yeah, I think Kay Hansen using her, I guess, improved striking, her takedown threats at the very minimum should win this fight. But for me, honestly, it's a 50-50. It's a show me fight. Jasudavicius has to show us something different, show us a better look. And Kay Hansen, she's still 22. She still has a lot to improve on. She is getting better, but I worry that her fight IQ isn't the best, and she would let this fight slip out of her hands. So no play for me on this one. I will go with Hansen by decision.
I actually see this as the female Stefan Struve versus Mark Hunt fight. I think Kay Hansen is going to get on the inside and then break Jasmine's jaw. I don't think it's happened before in women's MMA, but that's how I see this fight going. So I'm going to take Kay by second round devastating KO.
Our next bout at bantamweight, we've got a fight between Tony Gravely versus Simon Oliveira. And currently the odds have it in favor of Gravely minus 250, come back on Oliveira plus 200. Interesting bout. Oliveira, another one of these debutantes from the Contender Series, last fought against Jose Alday to a split decision. I won't mince words. I wasn't very impressed by what I saw. Muay Thai practitioner, he's just kind of sloppy. There's a chance he can knock out Gravely. I just don't see it happening. He seemed a little too slow for me, and his defense wasn't all that great. I think Gravely, although he lost his last fight to Nathan Maness, he looked really good in that fight. He looked super improved, super fast, super well-rounded, attacked the legs. He went for takedowns. He even dropped Nathan Maness with a right hand, and his right hand is super, super money. His left hook, too, is pretty good. That's like a typical thing with these wrestlers, the right hand, left hook. And with Tony Gravely's speed, I think it's going to be the deciding factor in this bout against Simon Oliveira. Simon, he is 18-3, and he's not terrible. It's just that he's not a guy I want to put any money on, especially at plus 200. I just don't see him pulling through. Again, he's very slow. Let me read my notes here. He's pretty slow. He's nothing really special. He gets wild. He goes for a Hail Mary guillotine against the cage once in a while. So there's a possibility he can pull off a submission, but I think he can get controlled against the cage pretty easily, especially with the acumen of Tony Gravely, his strength being that he's a wrestler. I got Gravely to win this one plus 250. I think that's not too bad. He might be added onto a parlay, but again, I've got Gravely. I'll go with decision.
Yeah, this is this is not a spot where you want to have that bias, for Oliveira. You think, oh, this guy's going to come in and guillotine choke and use his fancy Muay Thai to beat the hell out of Tony Gravely because, he's been on the streak. No, it's not that Oliveira. It's a different Oliveira. Yes, this guy has a little bit of a streak going, but it hasn't been the streak against, the top guys in the UFC. So here I think, he's going to have a tough time with Gravely. Yeah, I don't see him dominating Gravely whatsoever, unless Gravely gets overconfident, which fighters tend to do if he's looking past Oliveira. But I think Gravely, I think he's been fairly, maybe consistent, for the most part against somewhat average competition. Sure, he lost to Nate Maness, but I don't think Oliver is going to have what it takes to take him down and, finish him via ground and pound. So I definitely think Gravely is going to take it here. Don't really have much more to add than that. I think he will get at least 2 rounds unless Oliveira comes in with some fancy jiu-jitsu, maybe near the 2nd round, 3rd round. So that's pretty much all I have.
Next bout, lightweight, Matt Frevola versus General Valdez, another debutante from the Contender Series and another fighter from Entrum Gym fighting in this card. Currently, the odds have it in favor of Matt Frevola, minus 200, come back on Valdez, plus 170. This fight it's a parlay killer, because if you add any of these to your parlay, you're playing with fire here, because I think honestly Matt Frevola should win this bout, mainly because General Valdez, although he's undefeated and he's tough as hell and he's wild in there and he's known to get knockouts and he's pretty decent on the ground, I don't think he's as skilled as Matt Frevola. Matt Frevola, his issues that his chin has taken a wallop. Just recently, of course, he got knocked out by Terrence McKinney pretty immediately, and that really, really severely damages your reputation in the UFC, especially when people are trying to bet on you. They worry about how durable you are. And he's also on a 2-fight losing streak, which it's very tough to pick a guy at minus 200 when he's in a 2-fight losing streak. But when looking at the guys he's lost to, Arman Tsarukyan and Terrence McKinney, you can excuse it a bit. He's fighting much lower competition. I will give it to General Valdez. He's not just fighting these Mexican bums in the regional scene. He's fighting some decent competition, but he's super sloppy. He fought Patrick White in the Contender Series. He got hurt a lot. He gassed out in that fight. And had Patrick White just been a little bit more technical, a little bit smarter, we wouldn't be talking about General Valdez, because he's very generic, if you will. The one thing that made me realize that Frevola was going to win, as long as he doesn't get clipped, is General throws punches from very far away, very, very telegraphed. And here I am, a non-wrestler, thinking, I would just go for the duck under takedown, double leg, and just beat his ass on the ground. And if I'm thinking that, Matt Frevola's thinking that, Matt Frevola will do that, Matt Frevola will win. I will say by decision. I think General's tough, and he's pretty scrappy on the bottom. I don't think he's going to threaten anything off of his back that's going to make Matt Frevola, oh my God, I better stand this up. But there's a chance that Frevola is just going to pound on him enough to get the decision. We'll see how tough Gennaro is. I want to say second round TKO, second, third round TKO, but realistically, I think Matt Frevola really needs this win. I got him by decision, playing it safe.
As will I. I think he's got his back against the wall. 3 losses in a row, and especially if he were to get this third loss against Gennaro, uh, essentially it would be against a debutant. I mean, he fought in the Contender Series, but this is his actual first fight in the UFC in the octagon against a UFC guy. It would not look good for Matt. I think he would probably get cut at that point. I don't know what his contract looks like, but I don't think they would keep him around like Cowboy or something, or one of these other guys who have a ton of losses in the past few years. Because what's that Dana White Contender Series? I think is going to start up soon, and they're going to start to bring in guys and whatnot. So yeah, I think he's set to, guys like this are pretty dangerous. But as you mentioned, the matchup definitely favors him. And as far as Gennaro, I don't think this guy's going to last very long in the UFC. If he's got that mentality where he'll take 1 or 2 to give you 1 or something, his chin, it doesn't look like it's made of granite to me. It looks like it's made of Play-Doh. And so, yeah, I don't think his chin's gonna, unless he's working on head movement, a little bit of defense. It doesn't look like he's going to last very long, especially with in lightweight division with a lot of heavy hitters in that division. Oh man, this guy's going to get destroyed. So his first matchup's not looking good for him. I think Matt's going to come away with a decision. If not, he might get him. Once he gets him down, he might get him in a position where maybe he gets him via arm triangle. Or in the scramble, gets his back and gets a rear naked choke. I wouldn't be surprised. So I'm going with Matt. At the very least, a decision, but very, very possible they scramble and he gets this guy's back, and he might get a rear naked choke maybe in the second round.
Next bout at welterweight, Michael Morales versus Trevin the Problem Giles. And yes, Trevin Giles dropping to welterweight from middleweight. Interesting little bout here. Currently, the odds have it in favor of Michael Morales, minus 145. Comeback on Trevin Giles is a plus 120. And this is my first underdog pick. Trevin Giles moving down to welterweight is concerning because he just got knocked out at middleweight by Dricus du Plessis, but he's fighting a very green guy in Michael Morales, who's known as as he put it, Olympic wrestler, but I have no validation of that. I tried looking that up. That's just what he said in the Contender Series, that he was like a champion in Olympic wrestling or Olympic style wrestling. I'm not certain. The dude is sloppy in there. He's very green. He has power. I mean, he's 12-0, but he's been fighting, man, I've been saying this a lot, but regional bums from Mexico. And although he has the reach advantage by 5 inches, he doesn't know how to use it. Kind of bum rushes you and throws a lot of power punches to try to get you out of there. So if he's trying to play that game with the much faster Trevin Giles, I can see Trevin Giles beating his ass pretty badly, giving him a vet lesson. I mean, Trevin Giles has the much better experience, although they're nearly identical with their records, 12-0 for Morales and 14-3 for Trevin Giles. That's 5 more fights that Trevin Giles has had, more fights in the UFC. I checked his Instagram. He's looking really lean and he actually has abs. So I see him possessing much faster speed and a whole ton of power at welterweight. My concern being that although Michael Morales, he's again very, very green, very sloppy in there. If he catches Trevin Giles, I am going to worry about his chin getting tested at lower weight class, at essentially a dehydration weight class. So we'll see how this goes. I'll be placing a bet on Trevin Giles to win this one. I will go with Trevin Giles by a decision, but I would not be surprised if he gets him out of there. Again, Michael Morales leaves himself open, doesn't know how to use his reach. Trevin Giles very fast. Trevin Giles decision.
Yeah, this is definitely the spot to take the underdog. I think maybe this is the first. I don't well, I don't recall the other odds, but this one's like a blatant. There's like a a big. There's almost like a bat signal on this fight, where there's that mismatch at least for the time being. Because I think by the time fight night comes around, Trevin Giles might be the favorite, in the betting odds. But as of now, being an underdog, I think there's a lot of value there. Well, not a ton of value, but a value in the sense of you have the experience, or all the experience of all the guys that. Wow, even going back to the LFA, he was fighting Ryan Spann and Ike Villanueva and whatnot. So Trevin Giles has that experience. He apparently from the looks of it, it looks like the guillotine choke is his kryptonite because he got submitted twice, 2 fights in a row by Zach Cummings and Gerald Mearshart. So short of Michael Morales taking note of that and working on his, if not wrestling takedowns, but jujitsu takedowns, and getting him in a or just basically trying to transition into the guillotine choke or even the ground and pound. I don't see him having that advantage over Trevin Giles. I think Trevin is definitely going to have the experience, or rather, Trevin's experience is going to play a huge factor in this fight. And as you mentioned, yeah, I do see Michael possibly getting knocked out. I would say second round via Tiger uppercut by Trevin.
Next bout, and why this is on the prelim card, I will never know. Kind of pisses me off, but El Matador, Ilia Topuria versus Charles Air Jourdain. Currently, the odds have it in favor of Topuria, minus 530, come back on Jourdain, plus 390, according to Tapology. And much better fight than the original. It was supposed to be Evloev versus Topuria. Evloev pulled out. Topuria then called out Dan Ige. Dan Ige was unavailable. He just went on vacation. And then Charles Jourdain stepped in. And we have this excellent fight on the prelims, which, I'm not going to bitch really now that I think about it. We get to see it earlier, but it's a hell of a fight. Currently, man, Ilia Topuria on a roll, undefeated. He's on a 2-fight knockout streak. Knocked out Damon Jackson and knocked out Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall getting knocked out made my year. I'll say that. And Charles Jourdain, he is coming off of a win against Andre Ewell, where he looked incredibly aggressive in the third round. Very impressive. Charles Jourdain, he stumbled a lot. He's been submitted just recently by Julian Erosa. Ilia Topuria, he's a submission machine. He's a knockout machine. He reminds me of, say, a watered-down version of Canelo Alvarez and a watered-down version of Damian Maia mixed together. I think that's an excellent compliment I can give this guy. I'm a bit of a nut hugger of him. So I'm very high on Ilia Topuria, but I'm not betting this guy. Like, I can't touch him right now at those odds. I can potentially have him to win this bout by, I can actually see him winning this one by a submission, of course, or by a decision, but that's a tough one to go with because how much respect do I have to give Charles Jourdain? I think Charles is a tough guy. He can make this a very interesting fight, and I think he can actually knock out Ilia Topuria. As much as I hate to say that, Jourdain, he is very crafty in there, and I can see him timing something like a knee when Ilia is trying to time a takedown or something like that. So realistically, I do have to go with Ilia Topuria to win this one by decision. He has to be a little extra cautious not to get caught by the very, very crafty Charles Jourdain on the feet. It's a hell of a fight. I cannot wait to see it. So yeah, I'll go with Ilia Topuria just by being more in your face and going for takedowns against Charles Jourdain. That is not his strong suit. Obviously, Charles wants to keep it striking, but I see Ilia keeping it striking enough to not obviously telegraph the takedowns or the shots, because that's where Charles Jourdain might want to try to capitalize on short notice. But I do see Charles eventually gassing out. Now, that's where I'm concerned. Am I going to go with the submission or with the decision prop? You know what? I will go with submission. I think that's how high I am on Topuria. I'll say that he'll get him in like a rear naked choke in the late second round. That'll be my official play. Second round submission for Ilia Topuria, rear naked choke.
Yeah, if anything, I think this is a more exciting fight than the original fight against Evloev. Evloev is good. I think it would have been a good grappling grappling match, but I think this is going to be fireworks for sure. This is going to be, on the main card. It's going to be like, oh shit, the fireworks before the main event, or even the co-main event. I would say. I think it's a good lead-in to that, and yeah, man, I think Topuria, he's rightly the odds makers got it right. But yeah, putting down that much for Topuria is insane. I would say, if you're going to include Topuria, this is definitely a parlay piece for sure. But I think, yeah, this is crazy, man. I think he's got the power. I think he's going to get Jourdain down, and I think he's going to probably finish it by rear naked choke in the second round. He's going to come out pretty aggressive. I don't want to jinx it because his Georgian comrade just got the shit beat out of him last night. But I don't think Jourdain has that Calvin Cater grit. Nor do I think Topuria is going to blow his load in the first round, and Charles Jourdain is going to wear him out with a tiny bit of grappling in the first round. So yeah, I think Topuria's got this in the bag, and for sure he'll get that. I'm pretty sure they're going to match up in the future anyway with Evloev. That would be a good next fight for him. I hope he's not looking past Jourdain for sure, but yeah, I think this will be a pretty damn exciting fight. So I'm looking forward to it.
Our next bout at middleweight, we've got Rodolfo Vieira versus Wellington Turman. Interesting little bout here. Two Brazilians. Currently, the odds are in favor of Rodolfo Vieira, minus 265. Comeback on Turman, plus 215. And this one, I have to be pretty quick about this one. I think Rodolfo's winning this one by accidentally knocking out Wellington Turman. I think Vieira is improving. I think his striking is getting better. He's very strong. Obviously, we don't have to mention his ground game. He's fantastic. If he can get you in a compromising position where you give up your back to him, he will snatch your neck and he will take the rear naked choke, just like he did with Dustin Stoltzfus. I think Rodolfo Vieira has improved significantly since getting his ass beat by Fluffy Hernandez. His jab is very powerful, very, very crisp and clean, especially for a guy like Rodolfo Vieira, who's primarily a jiu-jitsu specialist. Excellent black belt. Very impressed by that jab. And Wellington Turman, he has not had a very good time in the UFC. He's been knocked out multiple times in the UFC by Andrew Sanchez, Bruno Silva, and then he went to a split decision with Sam Alvey. I don't see it in his future to be in the UFC any longer, unfortunately. I do worry that Turman will have a Fluffy Hernandez type of performance if he's been drilling his takedown defense and just trying to keep it on the feet. I think he can have some success. But again, Vieira has improved. I am predicting he's going to look better than ever. And a better than ever version of Rodolfo Vieira is not good news for Turman. I have, again, Rodolfo Vieira accidentally knocking out Wellington Turman. And by that, I mean he's going to throw a jab and maybe a right hand, and then he will drop Wellington Turman and then maybe finish him up with one extra punch as he's attempting to set up a submission. So I'll go second round TKO for Vieira.
Yeah, I think Wellington Turman's best chance is if he actually trained with Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, or somebody of similar experience. because Adolfo Vieira, yeah, as you mentioned, I think he's going to have his way in this fight. And he actually might be the first guy to submit somebody with his fist. And, you know, I don't mean, that Wellington Turman's going to tap out due to strikes. I think he's going to, actually find some way to submit Wellington Turman with his fist. I'm thinking he's just going to ram his fist into Wellington's throat and just kind of press down on it and go, oh, that's the first submission, by fist in UFC history. But yeah, he's going to give him a good fisting, I think. But I predict Adolfo by probably second. I think Wellington's going to be tough enough to last the first round and get into the second round. But I think that's when Adolfo's going to quit playing around and realize, yeah, I've got to finish this. So I'll take him by second round fisting submission.
And before we begin the main card, I'd like to ask, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. This past Friday, just to fill you guys in, I had my second ever judging event for a MMA card. It was interesting. I saw a lot of, frankly, shitty fights, and it's very difficult to be a judge, I will say. And I'm not saying that because I'm doing this. And I mean, seriously, a lot of judges get a lot of shit, but there are certain fights that can occur, certain situations that make it difficult for a judge to make a decision as to who wins a round. And I kind of felt that in the main event of this event. It was a welterweight bout between a former Tough alum and a journeyman. And the first round that I had to judge, and I'll say this, it ended in the second round, thank God. But the first round was so uneventful, so boring, nothing happened. The corner of the guy who was the Tough alum, his corner, who was, funny enough, a current UFC fighter, he was screaming at him, hey, do this, win the round, win the round. And I'm thinking to myself, listen to the fucking guy, do the thing, just do it. I need to give someone the round. And he didn't do it. He didn't listen. It completely sucked. At the end of the round, I'm like, nothing happened. Who won that round? I made a decision. I didn't feel confident in that decision because, frankly, there was no clear-cut winner of the round. No way I could have given a 10-10. So the other guy ended up winning that round. And I was like shitting myself. Oh my God, I really hope I don't have to turn this card in because it's going to suck, because it's going to be all over the place. And luckily it ended in the second round. Didn't have to deal with that. But damn, that was a bit of an interesting night for me. And the money that I got from judging that event, I actually went and placed it all on all on parlays for Chikadze versus Cater, and I doubled my money, so I was pretty happy. But yeah, it's kind of filling you guys in on that. But let's move on and let's start off this main card. To open the card, we have Michel Pereira versus Andre Fialho. Hell of a fight, short notice bout. Fialho took the fight when Muslim Salikov pulled out, and it's a pretty low key banger fight. I mean, Fialho, if you don't know, he's a former Bellator and PFL veteran, and the dude can scrap. He reminds me a lot of Chris Curtis because he's primarily a boxer. And funny enough, Chris Curtis and him fought. Chris Curtis whipped that ass. And if you don't know, Fialho is the guy who officially retired James Vick. The dude has a killer instinct. He's primarily a boxer. He doesn't necessarily throw kicks, but he can throw kicks. It just really depends on the opponent. He has a very good killer instinct. When he has you hurt, he puts it on you. His combinations are spectacular, but he's a bit of a tanky, plotty type of guy. He can also be a bit too patient in there. He's very comfortable on the feet, but yeah, the thing about him is that he's not very fast. And Michel Pereira, he's very, very fast. He's very well-rounded. His gas tank is a bit suspect in the third round because he might do too much. That's always your concern when betting Pereira, is that he's just going to go a little bit full heatard and cost himself the fight, because he's a very good fighter. But I see this one going almost identically to the fight that he had with Chaos Williams. Chaos having the more power. And again, he's actually, Chaos is way faster than Andre Fialho. So I see this one being pretty easy for Pereira now that I think about it. So Pereira should win this one by a decision. I can see maybe a knockout happening for either guy. It all really depends on how Pereira looks in that third round and if Fialho makes it to the third round. If it does, it's going to be a lot like the fight with Nico Price in that third round. But again, based on what I've seen, Andre Fialho coming on short notice, he has a really good win streak and a very good knockout streak, but unfortunately, it's going to get busted by Michel Pereira. And I am excited to see him in the future fighting a guy not so highly ranked or highly touted. So good luck to him in the future. Michel Pereira wins this one by a decision.
Yeah, as do I. I mean, the only advantage Andre would have would be if he's been training with Diego Sanchez. Then Pereira is really in fucking trouble. Other than that, I think Pereira is going to win at least 2 rounds. Because Andre might come in. So being he's a debutante, he might either come in strong or want to finish strong. But I think for sure, Pereira is going to either take the first and second or the second and third. Minimum. If not all 3 rounds. So I'm going with Pereira by. You know what? I'll take him by reverse triangle, meaning he takes his back and then and then he gets him in a triangle from his back. So try to picture that.
Next bout at bantamweight, Cody Staman versus Said Nurmagomedov. I don't have much to say about this one, honestly. Forgive me, but I think Said wins this one. He's got the length, he's got the wrestling. I think he's got every advantage other than the fact that he hasn't fought in a year and 2 months, knocking out Mark Striegel. And Cody Staman, he's had it pretty rough as of late. He lost to Jimmy Rivera and lost to Merab Dvalishvili, both good wrestlers. Now he's fighting another wrestler with a lot of reach on him, and he's a Nurmagomedov. And these guys know how to win. I know Said lost to Ione Barcelos, but Ione, I think he would also decimate Cody Staman. But yeah, unfortunately, as much as I like Cody, I've got Said Nurmagomedov to win this one by the Nurmagomedov decision.
Yeah, it looks like Cody's coming toward the end of his UFC tenure. He's only 32, so if he gets cut, he might pull off a couple of a good streak and maybe make it back by the time he's 36 or 37 or something. But he's yeah, man. Every time he's come up against I guess it would be top competition because Aljamain Sterling, Jimmy Rivera, Merab, these guys are what we consider some of the top guys in that division. So it looks like he's got the he's I don't know if it's a mental block or what, but yeah, I remember he definitely let me down against Jimmy Rivera. I expected him to use his wrestling against Jimmy Rivera, but then I'm like against Merab. No, his wrestling is not going to cut it against Merab. And I think, as you mentioned, it's going to be the same against Said. He's not exactly Khabib, but I think he's got more than enough to stifle Cody. And yeah, those T-Rex arms, man. I don't know what the hell he's got to. He's got to lose that Chad Mendes physique, with what's that other guy's name? The Chris Benoit look that doesn't exactly work in his favor. So he's got to change his training, focus more on fighting and not so much the he's not going to win with the cross-face crippler, that's for sure. So I'll take Said here by decision. I don't think either guy has what it takes to finish the other, and I think it'll be a fairly boring fight.
Next bout, co-main event, Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo. 3 interesting bout. These guys have had to fight each other consecutively 3 times, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't remember the last time we got 3 back-to-back fights for a title with the same guys. Unless I'm mistaken, it would have been Stipe and DC. But yeah, man, Brandon Moreno versus Davison Figueiredo 3. Davison now training with Henry Cejudo at a Fight Ready, and Brandon Moreno having the confidence of a champion because he is the champion and he goddamn deserves it. Currently, the odds have it -184. Moreno come back on Figueiredo +150. And I'll be upfront. I'm not going to mince words. I think Moreno wins this one. And I think he wins this one by decision. And the reason for that is that I don't think Brandon needs to improve. He's already an excellent version of himself, and he might be the Huckleberry of Davis and Figueiredo. We know that Brandon can hurt Figueiredo. And honestly, the biggest X factor is Brandon's not afraid of the power of Davison. That first fight, he gave him too much respect, which ended up essentially costing him the fight. The second fight, zero respect in his face, even dropped Davison with a jab. And then we saw what happened on the ground. A confident Brandon Moreno is a dangerous Brandon Moreno. And he's such a nice guy. He's the baddest dude with a Mickey Mouse tattoo. And we already know about Davison. Dude's an excellent fighter. It's just that he doesn't have that particular X factor, being the combination of endurance and cardio. And when it gets to the point where he needs to really dig deep, I just don't know if he has it. Hence him being with Henry Cejudo and Fight Ready. I think he is going to be a bit more well conditioned. He's looking shredded as hell. But again, he's fighting at flyweight. And I don't know how much longer he can keep fighting at flyweight. He should be moving up. I think it would do him really well to not only have that type of power at bantamweight, but have a bit more conditioning and more water weight in you to just show the best version of yourself. And I think he is a victim of the weight class. So I will continue to go with Brandon Moreno. The dude he's a super cool guy. I mean, I like Davison as well. It'd be interesting to see if he wins this one because you can't count out Davison Figueiredo. You know how dangerous he is. If he snatches the neck of Brandon just right, I mean, Brandon's been submitted before, so I can see that happening. But I'm interested to see what the game plan is for Davison. If he's going to be more grappling heavy, more implement more takedowns, we'll see. But Brandon, he has a different kind of strength compared to Davison. I think the better athlete being Davison, but I think the stronger guy is Moreno, being that he's going to be the taller guy, slightly longer reach, 2 inches. I think Brandon does what he did in the second round, and he continues to get in the face of Davison, and Davison's not going to like it. And eventually, Davison will make a mistake, which will cost him the fight, being that, say, like Giga Chikadze did. He got taken down in the first round, and that was literally the end of the fight. After that, he got his ass beat and went to a decision. I see the same thing kind of happening here with Brandon Moreno. I see him establishing himself as the dominant fighter, and he's going to just continuously get rounds. And as Joe Rogan put it in the second fight, Davison's going to have to fight from behind, meaning he has to catch up. And I don't think he will. He might win a round, he might win 2, but for sure, Brandon's winning 3. Brandon Moreno by decision.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fireworks, may have already happened in the first 2 fights. I think they're both going to be a little bit conservative in this fight, just because they both, this is probably the last, at least for Figueiredo, this may be his last title shot in the foreseeable future if he loses. And for Moreno, he just won this fight, and I don't think he wants to lose it, since he's been getting all these perks, like getting Legos or some shit, now that he's champ, and getting a little bit of a little bit of notoriety and recognition, because of the UFC outside the UFC. And so I think they're both going to be a little bit cautious. But I think the way it's going to go is going to be similar to the JDS and Gane trilogy, in that, unlike that trilogy, Moreno didn't get KO'd in the first one, and then, but kind of like that trilogy, he essentially he lost that first fight. Yes, they concluded it as a draw, but essentially he lost that fight. And in the second round, in the second fight, he came back to win. Kane, kind of like Kane. And then in the third fight, Kane just beat the shit out of JDS because JDS's chin at that point had been annihilated. So, similar to that, I think because he won the second fight, I think he's definitely going to win the third fight now. He knows how to, exactly what to do and how to beat Figueiredo. I think it's just going to be like round 6 of the second fight, and they're just going to kind of continue on. So I think Brandon's definitely going to take this fight. He's going to go on and face Alexander Pantoja, and that's going to be a very dangerous fight for him. So I'm taking Moreno here by decision as well.
Our main event of the night for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. Francis the Predator Ngannou versus Ciryl Bongamin Gane. What a fight. It's crazy to think that Ciryl Gane, who's only been fighting in MMA for 3 years, he is the current favorite, minus 150 over the current champion, plus 125. I don't know if anyone knows the stats because I didn't check. I just talking randomly into a microphone. When was the last time the interim champ was the favorite over the reigning champ? That's interesting to me. But yeah, we know the narrative, former training partners, blah, blah, blah. Not here to talk about that. We know what each of these guys is going to do. So I'm not going to break down that, Bongamin, he has excellent footwork and he has this and he has that. And Francis has the power. We know. I am looking at this as more of a mental battle between two guys. They're identical. 83-inch reach for both, 6'4" for both. We've got speed and technique versus ungodly power for Francis. It's just really up to you who you think is going to win. Will Ciryl Gane dance his way to a decision, maybe even get a late stoppage or even a submission? Or is Francis going to do what Francis does and knock out Ciryl Gane in the first or second round? It's a tough one to really break down. It's a tough one to really predict because how confident are you that Ciryl Gane is going to avoid getting knocked out? And how confident are you that Francis Ngannou's fight IQ has gone up enough to lay traps for Ciryl Gane and his excellent footwork? It's tough for me. I honestly think that Francis should implement, and I think he will implement some takedowns. I think it would make him such a complete fighter if he can not only knock you out, but if he takes you down and grounds you out and pounds you out. That'd be interesting to see. That would be a whole different level for the heavyweight champion. But it's hard to pick Francis knowing how good Ciryl Gane is. The dude is on a different level, absolutely different level. The footwork, as we mentioned, and the mentality, I have to say that's what I'm more focused on. It's the mental side of this. Francis, he's dealing with the issues with the pay and possibly leaving the UFC. And Ciryl Gane, he's not worried about any of that. He honestly doesn't seem like he cares. He's like, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to fight. And if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. He's like, I'm not even worried about getting knocked out. And that is such a valuable thing to have as a title contender, as a possible champion, that you're not worried about getting knocked out. You're not worried about that because when you make mistakes or you freeze and then you get caught. And I don't think I've ever seen Ciryl Gane do anything like that. I don't think he really cares that much about the sport. And it almost seems like it's the truth when he's talking in his interviews. Like he doesn't seem to care so much about anything. He's just a family guy. He wants to be happy. He's always happy. And Francis, I think he's a bit bitter about everything that happened in his life, him getting disrespected by the UFC, by Dana White. It just seems like he's not in the best mental spot opposed to Ciryl Gane. And that could be a good thing. He can fight angry and he can win. Or Ciryl Gane's just going to do what he does and beat your ass and he smiles at you. I actually predict that to happen. I predict Ciryl Gane to coast to a decision win. And Francis, he's always dangerous. So I'm interested to see if he pulls this one out, but I will go with Ciryl Gane to win this one. I think he's currently on a different level. I think he is the new prototype for what heavyweights should be. And if you ever want to touch the champ, which will be Ciryl Gane, you're going to have to evolve your game because this guy's on a way different level. Ciryl Gane, he's something special. He wins by decision.
Yes, this is definitely a very interesting, intriguing fight, and as is in most cases, this is the two very best guys in the division, hands down. We have the guy who's known for his knockouts, in Francis, but he showed a little bit of improvement in his last time out, as you mentioned, against the then heavyweight champ Stipe, and I think he's going to bring that, bring everything he's learned to this fight because he's going to need it against Ciryl. Funny thing, I see Ciryl as like the heavyweight Lyoto Machida to a certain extent because of his footwork. Mainly his stance, his footwork, his patience in there. But this guy, he is a very, I'd say maybe he's the most complete fighter right now in that division. In that, he has the power, he has the cardio. He hasn't really been pushed to his limit, I don't think, by anybody from what I've seen. But so he's got the strength, or rather the power in his hands and in his feet and knees. He's got the cardio. He's got great movement. As I mentioned, he's got patience, and he actually has a very underrated ground game. A lot of I'd say maybe some of the guys on that are known are rather what's his name? Shit, he got knocked out by Derek Lewis. His name escapes me at the moment. He's the announcers are constantly saying he's the best wrestler in the heavyweight division.
Curtis Blades.
Curtis Blades, yes. He doesn't have Curtis Blades' wrestling, but he has, I think, very underrated grappling. He's not like I don't know. I doubt he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but
No, he's not.
For being a big guy, he's got a very very good ground game, and so that I think that aspect keeps him or has him with very high confidence, on his feet. So the way I see this bout going is I see Francis, bum rushing him in the first round, kind of like he does, kind of like maybe how he did Biggie Boy or one of those guys. Ciryl moving out of the way, tagging him, getting him to the ground, and just kind of start his domination from there. I think he's gonna counter Francis. Francis is going to get very frustrated. It's going to be sort of like a Derek Lewis type, or very similar to the Derek Lewis type fight. I don't know if either guy will finish the other. I mean, I know Francis has that one shot chance to finish the fight, but I think Ciryl is very aware of that, and I really don't think he's going to get caught. So I think he's just volume, patience, technique. I think Cyryl's going to get that decision. I don't know if he'll be able to submit Francis either. That's going to be tough. And even if he gets him to the ground, I don't know. It's going to be a very, very interesting fight. But I think but I think we're going to get the new champ. Francis is, I guess, as you mentioned, Dana White's not happy with him because he's speaking out against the shit pay that him and everybody else is getting in the UFC, and I don't know. I guess a lot of the guys, they don't have a lot of clout, a lot of pull, and so I guess that's why Dana is especially pissed off with Francis that he won't just take whatever the UFC gives him. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if everybody will get Conor McGregor money, but from what at least from the numbers I'm seeing, these guys are getting paid early 2000s Tito Ortiz money. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I'd be pissed too if I was. I mean, $500,000 seems like a lot of money, to average Joes like us. But to these guys, they have their, they're getting taxed on that. They're paying their agents, their managers, their team. They need it for training, and then they also need to make a living. They have mortgages and rent and shit to pay, and so it's not really a lot of money in comparison. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I can definitely sympathize.
Telling you, dude,
Francis.
if he loses and he goes to Bellator, they'll give him whatever he wants,
Oh yeah,
absolutely
for
anything,
sure.
and he'll be boxing on Showtime in no time.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then for sure they'll probably. I think even if he does lose, I think he'll probably transition into boxing, get in a few matches, and then maybe do an exhibition bout against Tyson Fury or something, or one of those guys, one of the heavy hitters, and then uh, I'm pretty sure he'll have success, kind of like Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva, he's had since retiring from the UFC, he's had quite a bit of success in boxing. It hasn't been advertised. It hasn't been as big in the media, so to speak, as ESPN and all these other shit shows are giving. Jake Paul and these guys like all this media attention. Anderson Silva, because of that, he's kind of gone under the radar with his actual boxing success. He's actually fought boxers. He hasn't been fighting Ben Askren and shit, or boxing, but I should say Ben Askren and getting all this media attention. But I think Francis, he would definitely. I think at this point, if that's the route he wants to go, um, I don't know if a loss. I'm not saying a loss is going to help him, but fighting out his UFC contract and going elsewhere would probably benefit him a lot more. If he's looking to make money, um, that's probably the way to go. Because it doesn't look like the UFC is going to give in to his demands. They're going to come up with some bullshit like, oh, he doesn't bring in the numbers and so on and so forth. So, in on one hand, it's kind of like, yeah, fuck the UFC. They don't take care of their people. On the other hand, I don't know. I don't really know all the specifics of their contracts and their how they pay their fighters and so on and so forth. So can't really argue much one way or another. Right? So, but as far as the fight's concerned, I think we're gonna have a new heavyweight champ at the end of the night.
And those have been our picks for UFC 270 Ngannou versus Gane. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. We appreciate you guys. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, follow the Discord, and we'll catch you at the next fight.